Greetings, ladies and gents, and welcome to this latest edition of Tales from Outer Space, where I take stories from across the internet and read them for your entertainment. This particular story is called The Basement, written by In Yellow Clad. When the Urad invaded the little human world of Olorai, they were met with stiff resistance. It wasn't necessarily a world of strategic importance, nor was it minerally rich either. But it was still a world teeming with civilian industries that were vital to the continued existence of the Imperium. So, when the Urad had pushed into the delicate, identical suburbs of the capital city, they found something quite surprising. No resistance. In fact, the soldiers discovered that the denizens of the suburbs simply went about their daily routines, minus the commute to work, as their jobs were temporarily put on hold till the fighting stopped. People still mowed their lawns, weeded the gardens, and generally enjoyed life. It was almost like they didn't notice the armed aliens wandering around their streets into their homes, looking awfully confused by the lack of panic on their now captive faces. As Lord Lieutenant Rorok stepped into the immaculate home of one of the humans, he was stricken with a sense of unease by the unfaltering smile of his host. The rest of his squad followed, shifting uncomfortably even though they were treated to the pleasant smells of fresh coffee and mid-morning snacks. "Welcome, neighbors," the human said in an awfully cheerful tone. It sounded almost too cheerful, too forced, uncanny and wrong, and it caused Rorok's hackles to rise slightly. "Can I interest you in some coffee? The wife has prepared some snacks too. She's just been itching to meet you all." The human was short but dressed in fine modern materials with a more 1950s fashion design. It was wildly out of place for the time period, and yet it fit with the overall aesthetic of the suburbs. Even the personal vehicles they used were styled after that time period. "State your name, human. We are conducting an inspection," Rorok said, and the human chuckled just as his wife entered the living room bearing a tray of delicious-looking pastries. "Name, Anthony Bradford, and this is my darling wife, Millie. And yours, good sir?" The human asked, grabbing what looked to be some sort of primitive newspaper, though even from the short distance, Rorok could see that while it was much like a paper, it was clearly more modern as the paper lit up and various articles appeared upon it, complete with appropriately moving pictures. "My name is of no consequence. You do realize you're now members of the Urad Synchronicity, yes?" "Oh, most certainly. You've occupied us fair and square. No trouble from us, I can assure you," the human said, his wife standing behind his chair with a hand on his shoulder. He really did seem to be utterly unfazed by the alien occupation, as if he knew something that Rorok didn't. And so Rorok approached him, pushing the paper aside and grabbing Anthony by the front of his clothes, lifting him a good foot into the air. Yet still, Anthony wore that same sickeningly cheerful smile on his face. "Then why aren't you terrified or trying to fight back? I've heard the tales of you humans, how you fight to the bitter end, never giving ground unless you're forced to do so. Why are you so calm?" "Ah, well, you see, I was like that once, but not anymore. I have my Millie to look out for now, and my leg isn't what it used to be after it took some shrapnel. Resistance isn't really in my playbook anymore," Anthony said with a shrug, and up close Rorok could see that his eyes that it was the truth. There was a hint of old battles held within, of suffering and triumph. Now he was ready to just live a comfortable, if mostly quiet and boring life. Rorok dropped him, and Anthony took a moment to fix his attire before he sat back down, gave his leg a rub, and went back to reading the news. The moment the newspaper snapped open, Rorok heard something else, something from below the house as his head snapped towards the only door that he could see, which would allow basement access. "Who else is here? House scans informed us that there was just the two of you," he asked, and for once it was Millie that spoke up. "Oh, there's nobody else here, dear. Just us and, of course, you. Pastry?" She held up a small plate, and Rorok pushed them aside and sent the pastry scattering over the floor, and closed the distance between himself and the woman. "Do not lie to me. I heard something just now. Who is hiding here?" he snarled, and to her credit, she didn't flinch, just arched her back and leaned backwards to look him in the eye. "I'm not lying. Why would I? There is literally nobody else in this house besides me, my husband, and you. You're welcome to expand the basement if you like. We won't stop you." Rorok squinted, then swiped a claw at the door, the rest of his squad moving to investigate. Carefully, they opened the door. They didn't want to antagonize the civilian populace more than any invasion already had, and one by one, they filed down the creaking wooden stairs. Rourke remained behind, watching as Anthony folded up the paper and stood, excusing himself to the bathroom and leaving his wife with a peck on the cheek. After about 5 minutes of silence from his team, Rourke started to grow just a little worried. "Squad report, what have you found?" he called out, only to be met with silence. Squinting, he moved to the threshold of the basement stairs, looking down into the poorly illuminated space. "Report, you fools!" he yelled down the stairs, only to hear a creak of the floor behind him. Just as he turned, he took a cast iron frying pan to the face, which knocked him off balance and sent him tumbling down the stairs. A few broken limbs later, he lay in a heap at the bottom, slowly trying to stand. Through blurry vision, he could see Millie standing at the top of the stairs, frying pan in hand and dangling at her side. With some effort, Rourke started up the stairs, intent on putting an end to her, when Anthony stepped into view, a fairly modern-looking shotgun in hand. With the distinctive sound as he charged it, Anthony fired from the hip, sending Rourke flying back down the stairs, his head smacking into the cold pavement and rendering him incapable of moving from the waist down. He felt blood oozing out from where the shot had punctured his armor and burning anger in his chest. "Should have tried the snacks, arsehole," Anthony said. You said you wouldn't resist," Rourke stammered, and Anthony smiled, as did his wife. "I lied," he said, and then closed the door, locking it behind him. Rourke struggled to breathe, but as he drew in a rattling breath, he heard something inherently inhuman and glanced to his right. In the basement proper, there in the shadows was a pair of eyes and the mutilated bodies of his squad. Slowly, one of those bodies was drawn into the shadow, the sound of it being eaten reaching him easily enough. Terror spiked through his heart, and he reached for his sidearm, drawing it and firing wildly into the shadows. The thing, whatever it was, seemed utterly uncaring of the plasma rounds that had been sent its way, and instead focused on him with those two eyes. Then there were 4, then 10, then 20, then way too many eyes. The only source of illumination in the basement began to flicker, and when Rourke uttered his last whimper, it went out, and the darkness moved towards him. Above, Anthony set aside his newspaper and stared into the distance for a moment, just as he and Minnie heard the gentle and rhythmic knocking on the door to the basement. "Well, Steve has eaten nicely today," he said. "He sure has. I'll have to make him a pie for later, as a thank you," Minnie said, focusing on some knitting that she was doing for her newborn grandson. "Oh, he'll like that. He loves your pies. Say, I was thinking of going fishing later. Would you like to join me?" "Certainly." And so life went on. It took a few months for the planet to fully fall under human control once again. But one thing was certain. In those months, the basement saw plenty of use. Story number 2, Gift from the Titans. Written by dothhathdepression. Child, let me tell you of 2 Titans. Once, there was a primordial ancient that was loved by all, a well of creative potential that spread joy to all of humanity. It forged great lands, where humanity was left to do what it pleased, asking for little and returning much unto those who wished for it, giving them the ability to tame its lands and build fantastic creations of complexity unrivaled. It was a benevolent spirit. It even allowed its very essence to manipulate by others who knew how in order for them to bring new life and creation, in forms previously unknown. Those were happy times, a time of progress and new aspirations, freedom to enjoy the fruits of the Titan. Of course, there was all stifled in the incoming Dark Ages. Over time, we grew greedy. Not for what the Titan gave, for it gave all. No, we grew greedy for what others had, using the gift of the Titan as a method to accumulate wealth. And the once golden age of sharing without art darkened and festered into a cancerous blight. There was nothing wrong with the art, but rather what humanity had done with it. And so the Titan was abandoned for the warmth of lesser beasts, forgotten and alone, save for a few loyal who stayed behind to tend to it. Then came the second younger Titan. It promised a mighty gift, claiming that it would be bestowed onto all without any wish for return. Many flocked to it, Young ones who took its gift, proclaiming its greatness, while others stayed their ground, mostly the older generation that could sense its malice from afar. They were correct in their choice, for the new gift harbored a terrible price. You see, the gift was partial, incomplete. It would leech everything from its victim, stripping them of material wealth and sanity, giving them the same experience over and over, even mocking aspects of the elder titan's gift. It preyed on the young, constantly putting them against each other and brewing anger from deep within. The loyalists and neutrals could stand no more of this. They saw what it truly was and scorned it, binding together for revenge. They woke the ancient titan once more. From the numbers of humanity, great warriors would rise up, donning armor that was black as night, sharpening swords of wit and humor, marching under the banner of an orange arrow. Of course, the foul beast had formed an army of its own, comprised of the ranks of enslaved younglings, feeding and fueling its own clutch on them. It also had its champions, foul demons, who further tightened its grip over their poor souls, acting as the self-centered idols to be worshipped. But no matter what it did, it could not stall its fate. The warriors marched forward, the ground trembling under them, swords flashing, banners raised high. The unstoppable unity of many, their crusade fueled by their memories of innocent times, alongside the titan that strode across the battlefield with majesty and might unparalleled. And as the foul beast weakened, its grip slipping, its champion slain and its lands purged, he could only watch as the humans advanced from beyond the horizon, chanting in blood-curdling unison, "Minecraft good, Fortnite bad." End of story. I'd quickly like to thank the T5 peeps: Cold War Boomerwaffen, Severin Cerberus, Bushmaster 177, Henry the Red, Caspar Arnholtz, Cold War Boomerwaffen, Elijah Silvercross, Dragzoon WRE, and Severin Cerberus. Thank you very much.